5 more minutes.
Huh?
5 more minutes.
Okay. Let me give you another case, and this will be the government's own words. An imam, Yassin Arif, who was imam of a mosque in Albany, New York, was prosecuted and sentenced to 15 years in 2007 because he witnessed a conversation between a government agent or provocateur and another victim, although the imam neither participated in the conversation nor did he understand the agent who spoke with a heavy accent and used codes. The trial went on, and the media started to take the side of the defendant in Albany and started to say the government has no case. This is weak. This is almost ridiculous. And the media, though the government got a conviction out of the case, and the media on March 8, 2007, at a press conference following Arif's sentencing on terrorism-related charges, asked the prosecutor as to whether or not they actually believed that Arif was a terrorist. And a quote said the response to the reporter's question about whether he was a terrorist, the government prosecutor replied, "Did he actually himself engage in a terrorist act? Well, we didn't have the evidence of that. But he had the ideology. Our investigation was concerned with what he was going to do here. And in order to preempt anything else, we decided to take the steps that we did, take the steps of a fake sting." In other words, they set him up. That's the words of the prosecutor. Other trials, such as the Nuremberg 4 in New York, the same agent who was in Arif's left, and he started paying people that were homeless, uneducated in New York to follow him, and he would pay for their housing, and he'd pay for their clothing and all this stuff. And he started talking about violent jihad, and he started talking about other things, and they're like a little pimp daddy, and they're like, yeah, we agree. And I mean, these people have no means, no education. Yet the government took them in, worked with them, taped everything, paid them to participate in conversation that got so strong and so rhetorically out of control that they said, we can prosecute now. And they convicted him. The Fort Dix Five. Read about them online. There's so many cases. In summary, the government is forcing harsh laws that criminalize ideology and free thought. People are receiving long jail sentences for supporting verbally or in other ways foreign organizations or the government disapproves of, even when the support is for legal or benevolent activities that reduce suffering and violence. The government uses criminals and con men to entrap hundreds of people targeted on the basis of their ideology. These agent provocateurs befriend targets and sometimes follow them for years, secretly recording their conversations in order to manufacture charges. Your friend at your house of worship, your business associate, your online counterpart in a chat room may all be FBI agents trying to get you to commit a crime. Trying, for example, to get you to say something that supports a foreign organization a government disapproves of, or a crime which you may not even be aware of. The government is engaged in a massive secret surveillance program that I believe Chipple talked about that intrudes into every aspect of our lives. The government cherry picks information to show the targets have the wrong ideology and may be guilty of crimes. Yet the government has claimed that it has no program to identify recorded information that shows the target is not guilty. Now this is a big deal. When a government records you for 10 years, they cherry pick, say this makes you a criminal. They should also let you see your own statements and say, hey, I said it 1,000 times the other way. But the government says, no, we have no program to release that information. That's secret and classified. You can't see your own statements to defend yourself. It is something that we all need to be aware of. It applies to Muslims now. We all may feel that, okay, we think it's okay. But these precedents, these statutes, these convictions that are going on in a courtroom are going to apply to all of the activists, all of the people, and all of us who the government thinks its ideology is at conflict with. So in closing, I just have one last thing to say. Any people that would give up liberty for a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty or safety. Benjamin Franklin. Thank you.
Again, my brother Kelly, Mick, thank you very much for that enlightening information. And if anybody is still asking questions why we need to wake up from pursuit of happiness, I think for the testimonies we've had today and the reminder we've had today, I think we need to start calling on each other. Because I have come to believe that even the people that have influence to rule this country make the decisions are not more than the number of people in this room. If we're all true Americans and actually functional, I think we can do something about it. I'm very confident of that. But time is running against us, so I will encourage our speakers. There's a whole lot to say, and even more of the speeches we'll post it on the Dallas Peace Center website, even including some of the videos, so look out for it. Our next speaker, again, we talk about religion now. My question to all of you and to our friends and family is, what will Jesus do? Will Jesus be guilty of the crime? Maybe we should start declaring war, preemptive war on racism, capitalism, nepotism, ethnocentrism, and maybe foolishness.
That's a cold war.
Yeah, we're in a war business. So we declare war on just about everything. But I hope that it doesn't take much to see that we have a whole lot of war to fight here at home than in Afghanistan and in Iraq and so many other shadows, terrorist state, so-called, that we are chasing. They say sometimes you need to just look at the mirror and you see the man you're looking for. Having said that, I'll move on to our next speaker. David Broyles is a member of the Texas Legal Panel of the American Civil Liberty Union of Texas. The ACLU is the go-to organization to defend and preserve the individual rights and liberty of every person in the U.S. Recently, that has meant defending people who practice their First Amendment right to speak out against the workings of our government. I thought we had freedom of speech, but now they edit our speech. Put your hands together for my brother David Broyles.
Thank you very much. I have a 7-page list that I'll share with you of ACLU cases that involve the same issues that we've been talking about here today, centered around the rights or protections for immigrants and for undocumented, for the rights of free speech to protest, and particularly for the persecutions and prosecutions of Muslims, East Asians, anybody who's suspected from the Middle East as a suspect against national security. I was going to introduce you to some of those cases. Some of them are local, like the Holy Land Foundation case, in which I'm local counsel for the ACLU, which involved, from the ACLU's point of view, the dissemination of a list of approximately 200 Arab and Muslim organizations that your speaker just alluded to, as if you give to these organizations, there's a list, Exhibit B, I think it's called, to a complaint in the Holy Land Foundation, that if you give to these organizations, you would legitimately be concerned that you might be subjected to prosecution by the United States government because they are co-conspirators with a convicted group, a group that fell under just the laws that your last speaker talked about. So there are many a risk in that. I'm also local counsel for the ACLU in the case here in Dallas County, Farmers Branch. You're all familiar with Farmers Branch having passed a series of ordinances where they try to restrict landlords, and in some cases employers, from renting to or hiring undocumented people and require some proof of citizenship or some check by the landlord for citizenship before they can rent an apartment. And of course, Judge Boyle here in Dallas, I believe it was Judge Lindsay before her, have declared all of those ordinances unconstitutional. I just want to say one thing about those. That case is on appeal now in the Fifth Circuit. But as one who does, as a private attorney, I'm not a member of the ACLU legal staff. I'm not an ACLU employee. I'm a private attorney who handles cases on a volunteer basis for the ACLU. But I do want to say that from the litigation point of view, because we've had a good discussion of the problems of litigating about protecting people from national security concerns, but from the litigation point of view of immigrants, I think it's a very, very problematic position that is now being urged. Most of the cases you hear about, like the one in Arizona, the one recently here in Dallas on Farmers Branch, turn on the claim that local governments like Farmers Branch and state governments like the state of Arizona can't do anything to regulate the status of the people that are in the state based on them being undocumented, illegal, or however you want to classify them, because that's preempted by the federal government. Thus far, that argument has been successful in most instances. It was to a great extent in Arizona. That doesn't say that people who are here and who are not legally here and do not have papers have any rights. There are no rights. The equal protection of the clause that protects the rights of people is very limited in this situation. So I just warn you that one Supreme Court decision that says that the states have the authority to act with regard to the people in their state and their immigration status will open the floodgates for the type of legislation that Texas is proposing. And she has listed, and you all have listed, the horrible types of things that state legislators can think of. Now, I want to back off from what I thought I'd say and maybe give another point of view. Look, you know, thought control isn't new. We went through, well, let me back up even further. In my lifetime, let me tell you, I went to SMU. I was here from 1956 to 1960, and this would not have occurred at SMU. You all, not all of you, could have come. I was 21 years old before I ever went to a public function with a non-white person. I'm Texan. I attended segregated schools until I went to Ohio to get a graduate degree. Things happen in your life that have an indelible impact. I was once with Molly Ivins and we were drinking, which is the thing you did with Molly Ivins. And she said, you know, something happens to those people who are liberals and progressives that's an instant change in their life. Do you have such a story? And people started telling them, well, I had one. In April of 1949, when I was 11 years old, my father took me to the Fort Worth Cats baseball game. And they were playing their parent club, the Brooklyn Dodgers. And when I went to the game, I had a primo seat right behind home plate to watch the balls and the strikes. And as I looked out for the